They're said to be a barometer of the health of our oceans. And if the whales found stranded throughout New Zealand are anything to go by, the oceans are in deep trouble. As you're about to see, scientists have been cutting open these beach giants, analysing their stomachs, and their findings are alarming. As Melanie Reid reports, it looks like our whales are starving to death.
A long way from nowhere, the remote Aotea Peninsula, between Raglan and Kawhia. 20 pilot whales, including 2 calves, were found in late June. They'd been dead for 4 to 5 days before they were discovered.
There are few things more disturbing than being in a whale graveyard. Such beautiful deep-sea creatures don't belong on our beaches, but they are becoming an all too familiar sight around New Zealand.
Something is wrong. We know something is wrong with their diet. I think the oceans are very sick.
Just days after this stranding, AUT's marine biologist Steve O'Shea came to this West Coast beach. For nearly a decade, he's been studying beached whales around New Zealand.
We're exploring the possibility that these animals are hungry, are both hungry and thirsty, in fact, because they get all of their food and their water from squid. And if we take the squid out of the oceans, there's obviously going to be cascading effects through food chains, and animals like this that are diving down to about 800 metres depth are going to come ashore malnourished or distressed, thirsty, and this is the end of the line for them.
While world leaders are trying to stop the commercial capture of whales at high-powered summits, you have to ask if we are inadvertently killing the whales ourselves. Not with harpoons, but by harvesting and eating their food supply.
Since 2003, Dr. O'Shea and his team of scientists have raced the strandings around the country. All up, they've removed and examined more than 400 whale stomachs, which is why they are becoming more and more convinced the whales are starving. And that's where the squid comes in.
When you open them up, every squid has got 2 beaks. That's just one of them, okay? Now, what we're doing when we open up the stomach of a whale is these things accrue in the stomach. They collect. And we should be finding, for instance, 1,000 of these in the stomach of a sperm whale. And that tells me that that animal's eaten a lot, because by looking at certain characters of the beak, I can determine how heavy that squid weighed. And when we recalculate the amount of squid that the whales have eaten, it's nowhere near enough to sustain them both in terms of food for their daily intake or water.
O'Shea and his team are further convinced the whales are in a shocking state of health because their teeth are worn and broken, likely to be from an inappropriate diet. What's more, this is the lining of a whale's stomach, and these are ulcers.
That's an extremely ulcerated stomach.
The stomachs, and in some cases entire whales, are taken back to the AUT University for dissection. And the news is not good.
Invariably, we're finding ulcers in the stomach, and these are huge ulcers. I mean, big holes in their stomach.
You put your hand through.
You could almost, they haven't perforated yet. If they'd perforated, it would have been terminal. So we're just prior to terminal, okay? But then what we can find in the entire stomach, these are big stomachs, and an animal like this can have 3 stomachs. It's a huge amount of food that they actually take aboard. We're finding the entire stomach lining is ulcerated. Now that's got to be a sick animal. If it were a human, you'd be in hospital.
Well, Hector's dolphins, which is only found in New Zealand, have gone down from about 30,000 in the 70s to...
Dr Liz Slutin is the Associate Professor in Zoology at Otago University. She specialises in marine mammals.
There are quite a number of threats to marine mammals in New Zealand waters, but the main one would have to be fishing. And so that's direct impacts from marine mammals being caught in fishing gear, and also indirect in terms of affecting their food supply.
One of those marine mammals is the now endangered New Zealand sea lion. Its numbers have declined 40 to 50% in the last 10 years.
So the whales starving to death would not really be out of step with what you're seeing in other marine mammals.
That's right, and also if we just look at fish stocks in New Zealand waters, they have certainly declined massively over the last few decades, and several stocks of orange roughy, say, are no longer being fished because they've declined so low. They've gone to, in some cases, 3% of their original numbers. So there's very clear evidence of reductions in fish populations in New Zealand waters.
This here is a fully mature male giant squid. It's been plastinated, okay? Now we have 86 species of...
Which brings us back to squid. Although Dr O'Shea is best known for his work with giant and colossal squid, he's an expert on all squid.
Ranging in size from something like this that is fully mature to something like this.
And he doesn't hold back on the effects of the $75 million squid industry.
And whales eat all of the species?
Every single species is eaten by whales and other species of fish in New Zealand waters. It's called a food chain.
So how is the food chain being affected?
We're taking out about 50 million kilograms of squid every year from waters around New Zealand. If we take the squid out of the oceans, there's nothing left for the whales, there's nothing left for anything else that feeds on squid, which include many species of fish as well, the likes of orange roughy.
Prior to the mid-60s, orange roughy was the staple food for sperm whales. When they were fished from the ocean decade after decade, tonne after tonne, the whale's diet switched to squid, not dissimilar to the fishing industry.
We're actually fishing down the food chain. The Japanese will be down in the Antarctic waters fishing krill. Why are we fishing down food chains? That's because all the big stuff is gone already. We'll be eating plankton soup before you know. It's about the only thing that we're going to have left.
So no more calamari?
I've had to give up on seafood, I'm afraid. I think that the cost to the environment, to everything else out there, is just too great.
We are fighting a war against fish, and we are winning.
At one level, it's a question of how bad is it?
This documentary about the devastating impact of overfishing has been a wake-up call for the world.
People say, where are all the fish gone? Where are they? We have eaten them.
But could it be that New Zealand is somehow apart from this ocean crisis? Ministry of Fisheries Acting CEO John Beaglehole.
The documentary, The End of the Line, shows what bad shape our oceans are in. Is New Zealand an exception?
We believe that New Zealand is an exception. The quota management system is the basis of how New Zealand manages its fisheries, and it sets catch limits for each